And then you have to walk out those experiences and go, huh, did my core value hold up? Because if it didn't hold up, well, maybe that wasn't your real core value. Maybe it's something that's deeper under that, and it's going to require you to do some more self-reflection. And so I really think that, this idea of like self-evaluation requires, there is a mental side, but there's also a very physical side that, I sit here and I kind of figure some things about myself, and I do some journaling and I read some books, but then I got to go out and put myself out in the practical application space. Mm-hmm. I've got to go out and go find out, is that true for me? Because maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, you could totally have an idea of something and think that, oh yeah, this is it. This is the answer. This is what I got to do. Then you go out and do it, and it's like, oh, that was not it. That was not what I thought it was going to be.
Because one of the things that I mean, if we look at our shelves, and we have an entire bookcase of shelves, we got stacks of books laying around, and we've read a lot of books that were other people's philosophies, ideas, systems on how to be successful, how to be happier, how to make more money. And I always find that whenever I put myself on someone else's plan, it only lasts for a short amount of time. And then I find myself kind of going like, what's the word? A little bit crazy over it. And then beating myself up when I find like I don't really want to follow this plan anymore.
Yeah, or you just naturally kind of fall off of it.
Right, you naturally kind of
then
gravitate
you judge
towards...
yourself for being a failure, a complete failure. I can never do anything.
So I think that's where like self-evaluation is good, right? So I can read one of those books, I can go through one of those philosophies, and I can pull out of it pieces. And I can kind of go, oh, that seems like it resonates with me, and then I can apply it. And sometimes I go, oh, well, that doesn't really resonate with me, or it resonates with me in this area of my life, but maybe not in another area. One of the things that I recently stumbled into that's really been fascinating me is the 80-20 principle. And initially, when I heard of the 80-20 principle, what I was taught was that, 80% of the time, do everything that's right. Stay hydrated, eat good food, do your meditation, stay on your little rigid schedule.
Little rigid.
Right? And then 20% of the time you can go be a fuck up. You can cheat, right? I hate this word, cheat meal. You can go out and do whatever you want to do, sleep in late, be a slob. Just 80% of the time, be a good little boy. And right, that's initially how the 80-20 was taught to me.
Yeah.
And so when I heard about the 80-20 principle, the way it was taught by Italian...
Well, the man who actually...
The man who actually created
the
right,
80-20 principle.
which was in the late 1800s. Actually, in 1896, this... Italian economist. His name was Pareto. I think that's how you say it. Pareto. Well, he's out working in his garden, and he starts noticing that some of his some of the pea pods are producing more peas. So being an economist, anyways, a statistician. I'm just going to butcher like 5 or 6 words real quick, right? Being someone that's interesting in like ratios. Right? I'm just going to keep going with this.
Well, interested in production.
Right? Decides, like, let's see. And he finds out that 80% of his peas came from 20% of the pods. So he wants to test it and find out, and it holds up. And he ends up writing an entire thesis on it. And for the last 125 years, people have studied it and found out that it's true. And so the 80-20 principle, all that to say, really comes down to 80% of your outcomes are coming from 20% of your efforts. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that's a kind of a big deal. I think especially, so now when I'm self-evaluating, now when I'm taking the time to do some analyzing or reflecting, I really can think about like, where's my 20%? Right? Where's that 80% of success? Or, right, the opposite is true too, right? 80% of my problems, my shortcomings, my struggles are coming from 20% of my actions as well.
Yeah.
And if I can just get really super clear on that 20%, then wow, That's going to help me really simplify my life. It's going to make it easier for me to show up on a daily basis. But even more so, going back to what you're saying about complacency, you know, for me, complacency is really kind of about like self-denial in some way. But it allows me to stay on my own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that's an important thing to recognize is, are you staying on your own agenda? Are you being true to yourself? Because it's really, 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 really super easy to get pulled into someone else's agenda. Be it your spouse, be it your kids, be it a professor, be it a coworker, a boss, your parents, right? Your Sunday school teacher. If you're walking around every day and you recognize, you start doing some self-evaluation and you recognize like you're on someone else's agenda, well, that's a problem. And for me, like, it's sinful. It's sinful. Like, I'm going to say it. I know you're making that face at me right now like you think I lost my mind, that you make at least a couple times a day, but I believe that. I believe that's a sin. Like, because that means
no, yeah, I don't believe that. I'm not judging you for saying that. I mean, I'm just like, oh, he went there. I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, yeah, totally. Because we consider each of us God. And if you're going against the God within, then that's a sin, you know?
Right. I love that. I'm going to make a meme. If you're going against the God within, you're committing a sin. Ooh!
I know.
Ouch. Don't do it. Right? And so, going back to paralysis of analysis, what the hell does the 80-20 have to do with that? And for me, well, don't get caught up like evaluating everything. Just get really clear on that 20%. And then go out. Go out and test it. You know? Go out and see. Go out and have that experience.
Yeah, what's your 20% that gives you the 80%?
Well, I think you have to break it into areas.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right? And so going back to, you know, my overall quote-unquote happiness, right? I know that there are certain things I have to do every day to be happy. I need to move, right? If I don't do some sort of movement that makes me sweat, and I go too many days in a row of not doing that, don't even bother. I'm depressed. I'm just groggy. I'm just irritable. I'm short-tempered. Movement is important to me. And even inside of that movement, you know, 20% of that movement during my week, it really needs to be running. Because there's something about running that's really freeing to me. You know, for me, running is like a metaphor for life. It teaches me a lot about life when I go out and run. It teaches me endurance and how to face myself and how to face like these different, sometimes I'm running uphill, sometimes I'm running downhill, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot, right? And going out there and running like really is a metaphor for living for me. You know, it's not about losing weight. It's not about getting faster. It's not about like proving to other people how cool I am. It's just a way for me to kind of evaluate where I am, right? And when my running's going really well, I notice that life's going pretty well, right?
Yeah, so it fulfills more than even just, like, it gives you a sense of happiness, but it also gives you a sense of self. And it also gives you, it sounds like it also gives you time to reflect on your own life and, yeah, this whole life experience that you're having. So there's even more than just happiness. And it helps keep you in shape and healthy.
Right.
So it's like that, yeah, that's a good...
Right. And so if that's the case, and running's doing, right, so you can see this one action, which we could call my 20%. Look how much carryover you just identified with this one action. Right? And I mean, this one action started when I was a kid. I used to go out and just start running. I mean, when I was in middle school, I'd wake up and run our whole perimeter of our neighborhood, 3 miles or something, every single morning, you know? I was one of the only people in high school that was a lineman. Linemen don't run. I ran, and I still played guard and defensive end. We had a small school, but still, right? Running is a really, really important aspect of Billy, of how, you know, and doesn't mean that I've got to compete. It doesn't mean that, I've got to run myself into the ground and injure myself and hurt myself, or that I'm running away. One of the things I heard you say was about, giving me a chance to reflect. And for me, movement is meditation. Every year, every day as I age, I find that movement becomes a very effective means of meditation for me, right? Especially when I can put myself in a steady state. Like this morning, I went and ran for 10K, right? 6.2 miles. And I held the same pace. Almost every single one of my miles was exactly the same pace.
That's cool.
And being in that steady state, right? Again, that like slightly exceeded my skill set, right? I got back to my car. I just started putting notes on my phone. Things I want to add to my online course, things I want to add to my book. All this stuff showed up during that period, right? And cool. It also is keeping me healthy. It's also getting me outside. It's also getting me interacting with other people, I got to high five a couple people. I gave a couple people thumbs up, right? So there's a lot, right? But that's one thing. That's that 20%, Another part of my 20% is people. I like people. I like being around people. I enjoy talking to people, Another part of my 20% is writing. I enjoy sitting down and writing. I get a lot of pleasure out of writing and putting together thought-provoking paragraphs, So I just had a brain freeze. Where was I going next?
I don't know, but you were talking about all the things that running, like all the benefits of
right.
running.
Yeah, and so that's it. So I know that part of what helps me be me, part of my 20%, if you will, is running.
Yeah.
Is writing, is being healthy, is interacting with other people, right? But we could carry that, like I said, you could break all those areas down and go even deeper into those. Running, 20% of my running is intense. The other 80% doesn't need to be, because I understand that the results of my running, are going to come from 20% of my work.
Yeah.
Right? But the opposite is true too. Right?
What do you mean?
I mean, 80% of your problems can probably go back to 20% of your habits.
Actions,
right? Your actions.
Yeah, totally.
And so when you're sitting there and you're doing your self-analysis or you're doing your self-evaluation and considering like how you show up for yourself, also consider how you're not showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
Consider how you're not showing up for yourself. Because you might just be doing something and justifying in your mind going, well, I only watch 6 episodes of Stranger Things a night. It's not a big deal. It's not a long program, right? But that time, could be affecting every other area of your life. It might be the reason why you haven't completed those work projects. It might be the reason why you're still not dropping that extra 20 pounds. It might be the reason why you're alone and unhappy, right? So going back to this idea of analysis, and the paralysis thing, if your analysis, really just spend time figuring out that 20%. And then once you figure that 20% out, go out and make sure to include it in your day. Go out and do it.
Right. And I think also, and if I could add to that, like, find what your 20% is. Like, not what you think your 20% should be. I think, like just since you're talking about running as an example, so many people think that running is the way they're going to lose weight, and yet they hate running. Like, well, then why are you even trying to do that? Like, you would have so much more success with 3 hours a week of doing something that you actually loved that would probably naturally become more than 3 hours a week because you want to do it, than if you're trying to be on someone else, again, like someone else's agenda. And I think that that's where evaluation can be really valuable and important as well, is what is it that I want? What is it that makes me feel good? Not, what is it that I should do here, or what's the right way,
Right, but should as in should for me, right? Not should for the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because the world's got a lot of shoulds for you,
Totally.
The world's got a lot of shoulds. And the only should is the one that like resonates with you. And my experience is when I start taking on and people go, oh, you should do this or you should do that or you should go fuck